Welcome to What the World Needs Now with hosts Tom Whisinnand and Josh Monroe. We hope that you're able to leave feeling encouraged and ready for another day of changing lives in the field of education as we speak with inspirational teachers from across the nation and world about what keeps their spark lit.
In this episode, we talk with Brooke Rogers, aka That New Teacher, a middle school social studies teacher from the Bay Area in California, about how her first 3 years in education have gone and what other educators can do to encourage newer teachers to stay in the field of education. Without any further ado, Brooke Rogers.
Brooke, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. For our listeners that don't have the absolute privilege of knowing who you are, could you introduce yourself? What's your elevator pitch? Who are you? Where are you from? What's your role in education?
My name is Brooke Rogers. I live in California, specifically the Bay Area of California, so northern San Francisco Bay Area. And I am a full-time middle school history teacher. I teach all the histories. So I teach 7th grade, 6th grade, and 8th grade history every day. And it's a joy and a privilege.
Dude, I don't know how you do middle school. Josh and I have talked about this at length. Like it's a different beast altogether to tackle those middle school kids. I don't know how you do it. What made you want to go into education, and what made you want to go specifically into middle school?
So my career into education was a journey, I guess I would say. I started out when I graduated high school. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, so I ended up moving to Fiji for a year. So I went there on a mission with my church, and through that, I worked with kids and I worked with youth, and I also randomly was like helping homeschool a family of 5. So that would be my first experience as a teacher. I was 18 years old, living in another country, like homeschooling this family and working with children and youth every day. And then I came back to the States and I went to college and I went pre-med. I was a biology major. I did that for a year and a half and I wanted to be a pediatrician. So like staying in the lane of kids, but not necessarily teaching. I repeatedly failed chemistry, repeatedly. So I ended up switching my major to psychology. It was like a crisis. I was like, I know I can, but I don't want to. So I switched over to psychology and was thinking maybe I'll do like child and adolescent psychology. And so that was my stream. And I wanted to here I am, still wanting to work with kids. I did get my degree in psychology, but when it came to the time to get my master's degree, I had taken some electives in education. Like, you know, when you get to you have to fill electives. I took like intro to education and got 40 hours of time in a classroom and stuff. So it was always like there in the background. I just had to finally say yes to it when it was time to decide if I wanted my master's. Instead, I went for my teaching credential in California. And even middle school, I thought I was going to be a kindergarten teacher. And somehow middle school just reeled me in. So here I am.
Well, then I kind of got to know, is there a chance you go back to that kindergarten route, or is middle school where you're meant to be?
It keeps feeling like middle school is right for me, at least for this season. When my kids come up to middle school and I'm living middle school all day here and at home, I might change my mind. I do have a multiple subject credential in California, so I could go into the elementary area if I wanted to.
You got that psychology degree. That psychology degree's got to come in handy with the middle school kids, doesn't it?
It definitely has its perks for sure.
Well, Brooke, that's quite a journey that you've been on, right? Like I know on TikTok and Instagram you're that new teacher, but you're not really that new anymore, right?
I know. I can't decide if I should change my name. I just keep it whatever. But it is my 3rd year teaching. And I've had my credential for like 8 years. I stayed home with my kids at the beginning there instead of going straight into teaching. But yeah, so I'm finishing up my 3rd year as a teacher. I don't know, how long are you a new teacher, really?
I think it's just a number, you know, like
age is just a number.
Yeah, I used to teach with a lady that retired, and she still had the fire in her belly, and like she would like learn new tech tricks. Like she was just incredible. So I think you could be a new teacher your whole career if you really just stay after it, you know?
Right. We're always learning. We're always Yeah, I hope to keep that, like that passion and fervor of a new teacher for my whole life. I would love that.
Yeah,
I really,
definitely.
I like the way that you viewed that, Tom. Like, hey, if you really want to be, we can be new teachers forever, right? That's how we want our kids to view learning.
Yeah, I
If-
mean, I don't want to be an old frumpy teacher, Josh, to be honest with you. And I don't think kids want an old frumpy teacher either, right? Like, and if we want to stay on top of our game, we need to be constantly learning and modeling that for our kids, like we talk about sometimes. So, um, yeah, that's awesome.
That's so true.
Brooke, I gotta know then. I gotta know if I did the math right. So if you're in your third year, that means you have not had a normal year in
Correct.
teaching. Is that correct?
That was
Okay.
absolutely
So,
correct.
all right, I did the math right. So then I gotta know because Tom's been in it way longer than I have. I won't name him or age him, I guess. We've had our normal years. Like, so what's it been like for you being in education, but not having a normal year? Because your normal is definitely different than ours.
Absolutely. My first year was the year that we locked down. So I'm going in first year and working insane amounts of hours. I was an English teacher my first year, actually. So the grading was like stacks of essays all the time. And finally, I was getting into third quarter and I was like, I'm kind of getting this. Like, I have a workflow. I know what I like and what I don't like. I found certain ways to connect with students that work for me. And then it was like, oh, we're going to take 2 weeks off. And I never went back in person again until the following year. Our second year was we gave our students the choice. They could be online or they could be in person, but the singular teacher did both. And then on top of that, we pulled a cart and we went room to room instead of having the students come to us to keep them isolated and separated in the hallways. So I was a mobile teacher my second year. And then now my third year, like here we are, and it's kind of getting back to what I think people call normal, but it doesn't feel the same as things were my first year. So I'm just like along for the ride. I don't know. Like I said, like, this is my normal. I don't know any different. So I'm just here to do my best in whatever the world throws at me every year, it seems like.
Yeah, that's incredible. What advice would you give to people who are tired? Like, a lot of people went through this and this isn't the normal. This isn't what I signed up for. This isn't what I prepared for at teacher college, however many years ago. And like, you've had 3 incredible years and we can just tell that your passion's still right at the top. Like, you're bubbly, like you have tons of great energy. But what advice would you give to people who maybe during these last 3 years couldn't or couldn't sustain that positivity?
Yeah, I first of all, I feel you and I feel for you. And I put out this bubbly personality, but I get tired and I get weak. I tell my students sometimes, like, you think I wake up like this? They think I wake up like this. Like, I have struggled. Like, I have worked to be the person that I am. And so, like, a lot of times I'm just choosing it. I'm choosing it for you. I'm choosing it for you right now in this moment. And so, like, it's sometimes we see, like, I try to put that out on my social media channels. They're like, oh, you're so happy all the time. Well, that's like what I choose to put out in the world, because that's what I want to put out in the world. But that doesn't mean I don't struggle. And that doesn't mean that you have to be on all the time. Like, we're allowed to struggle. We're allowed to be weak. Like, we are human, and that's okay. We have to just keep getting back up and making that choice and taking the time when we need to take the time, and standing up and getting excited when we need to get excited, and bringing what we need to the table. So it's definitely a struggle for me as well. I get tired. It's not something that comes naturally to me. Like, I wake up and I choose, like, this is what I want to put into the world. This is what I want the students to feel today. Especially having been a teacher in the pandemic, like, I felt like I was kind of sometimes just like that safe place for kids to land. And I had to be the calm in the storm, or not had to be, like, I got to be the calm in the storm. Like, the world is going around us and you're trying to make sense of this. And, like, I'm going to be here every day, and I will bring you a calm if you need a calm, or I'll bring you a joy if you need me to be joyful, like, so it's a choice of like the attitude that we put out in the world when I see the classroom as a stage sometimes. And so like sometimes I say teaching is 80% acting, so so sometimes I'm like choosing what I want to put out there, what I want the students to feel today.
I love that. And I love that you said it's a choice that I wake up like this, right? Like when we wake up and you're tired or you're exhausted, you've got that feeling, but you can go into your classroom feeling that, or you can change for your kids. And it's a choice that you make. And it's not an easy one because, like you said, like we are tired. Every teacher that walks in every day, we're tired. Like we we're gifted with 20 plus kids that we love and we enjoy being around, but it is exhausting at times. So Brooke, I guess my question to you then is, those days that you are exhausted, maybe you missed out on the Starbucks line or whatever it is. Your scooters, is it Starbucks? Do you even have scooters in California? You know what scooters is?
They do in the city, like where you can rent the scooters. Is that what you're talking about?
No.
No, you were talking about a restaurant, weren't you?
I'm talking about like a coffee shop.
No.
Like a Starbucks. You got Starbucks then?
Yeah.
Okay, so like the days that you miss going to Starbucks, how do you fill your bucket? Like on those days that are really hard when you get home, because you've got a family to go home to too.
Yeah.
Like what ways do you refill your gas tank so that the next day, hey, you're ready?
Habits are a big deal for me in my life. I believe so strongly in the power of setting yourself up, like you're setting a pattern for your life. Because if you notice, like we follow patterns in our life. Like you wake up, what's the first thing you do? Is it grab your phone? I have to put my phone in the next room, like so that my alarm goes off and I have to get myself out of bed. And now I'm not laying in bed scrolling. Like that's the first start of my pattern. And so I feel like I designed my life to have healthy patterns. And when I notice an unhealthy habit, I tend to have like, even though you said I'm joyful and bubbly, like, I like appreciate that, but I tend to have very negative thought patterns. And so like, I find ways to set myself up to avoid those patterns. You know what I mean? So like if I'm going to go into my home, I sit in the car I'm in the driveway, I'm sitting in the car and I'm waiting until I feel like a healthy space to get into my house. I don't just let all of my day blend together, or sometimes it's not about what you add, it's about what you take out of your life. So maybe I limit my technology use. I'll do like no tech hours where I just like set my phone and I refuse to touch it or look at it for an hour. Or eliminating those negative conversations. Like sometimes we just allow, like we want to go hang out with our friends on our prep period, but maybe those conversations are negative and focusing on the negative things that are happening throughout the day. And maybe you're better off just like finding a quiet space. Today, that's what I did. I went to like an empty conference room. It was dark in there. And I just sat on my laptop and did my work because that's what I knew I needed. So just trying to stay in tune with yourself and being self-aware and recognizing and naming what's happening so you can kind of take control of the situation. So setting up those patterns, those healthy patterns to make habits, and then recognizing what's happening and kind of taking control of your day.
I think that's so powerful. One, naming specifically what is going on, what patterns or what behaviors or what mental thoughts you're having, specifically naming them is really powerful. But then I also think what you said about taking that time until you are comfortable with yourself, until you feel you can go give your best as a parent, the best as a spouse, the best to your classroom. Find a space in the school where you can have that time so that then you can go be the best you for everybody else that you're trying to love and care for. I think that's absolutely powerful, Brooke. So kudos to you for really bringing that to the forefront. And you're being absolutely vulnerable. And I think sometimes as educators, we're vulnerable, but we take it to that next level of crawling down in the pit. Yes, it's hard. Yes, it stinks. Yes, it's, really, really hard, but we don't find a solution. We don't recognize those patterns, and we're in the hole, and we stay there, we dwell there. And then it becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm miserable. I don't like it. Why am I not doing well at my job? Why am I not meeting the needs of my students? So I hope that we can get more teachers to recognize those patterns in themselves. That's huge. What do you do to? Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, like, what Brooke was saying plays off of, that's what we ask our students to do too, right? Like, is figure out those ways when you do feel overwhelmed with a feeling, whether it's a high feeling or a low feeling, a blue or a yellow, however we look at it, we've got to figure out ways that we can regulate it in healthy ways. And I love that about that. What you were saying, Brooke, is that, like, going into a conference room, not going to sit with a coworker that might bring some negativity on a day that you're feeling low, right? We ask our students to do that every day, but we don't always practice that. And if we want our students to give off the same energy that we're trying to give them, then we have to show them that. So just playing off of what Tom says is a big kudos to you, and thank you for being that light in the world.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Brooke, what are some ways that you invest in yourself? Are there any books that have really like blown your mind, changed your life, like it kept you inspired during the last 3 years? Are there certain podcasts you like to listen to? Like, how do you find hope?
When I stayed at home with my kids, I was obsessed with podcasts and listening to audiobooks. Now that I teach full time, and then even during my prep period, there's a class in here. So there's not like a lot of quiet in my day here. And then I go home to 3 kids. So I feel like that has fallen back some for me, that it's something I want back in my life for sure, is more books and podcasts and things like that. I miss that. I need to like tune in on my commute more. But a book that changed my life, I already mentioned that I love habits. So a book that changed my life was The Power of Habit. That one's a little more sciencey and academic. If you don't like research-based psychology things, then you should do Atomic Habits. That one's a little more like mainstream thinking, or like said in more of a less scientific way. But both of them, those have changed my life at home, at church, and at school, like all areas of my life. That those have changed my life for sure. Education-wise, I love teacher YouTube. When I first found out I was going to be a teacher, the whole summer before, I binged teacher YouTube like crazy. And then it's going to make me sound old, but I love teacher Facebook groups, like niche teacher Facebook groups that are like, this is for middle school social studies teachers, like that niche down, right? I love that. And then, so I find so many new resources and ideas, and it's like, hey, we're in the Industrial Revolution. What are you guys doing for this? And so I find a lot of new ideas. And people think I'm like a creative teacher. I'm like, no, I just like use my resources. I'm a good researcher and I can follow directions. I love Facebook groups. I really do.
I like that because I've talked about it a lot as a teacher. I put myself in a silo when I first started. So I obviously wasn't like you. I was scared that people would view me as inadequate if I asked for help. And I love that you're talking about, hey, it is important for us as educators, as practitioners, that we look at what other teachers are doing, that we ask questions, that we reach out for help when we need it. Right? Like that's what our job is asking for help when we need it.
And we truly are, as a teacher community, like as a community nationwide, worldwide, we're better together. What you guys are learning over in your states is very different than what we're adopting in ours. And like, we can kind of come together and say, hey, there's this new resource, or there's this new idea, and we can make each other better. And so I really do feel like the community of education, and the fact that we have this access to the internet and we can talk to each other like this, like the way we are now, it's such a beautiful thing that shouldn't be, taken lightly.
I agree. It's an easy way to break down walls, right? I think that has been one of the best adventures for me through this podcast, is being able to break down walls and communicate face to face with amazing and inspirational teachers like you. Brooke, I'm also pretty curious because you've been in education through the pandemic. I hope that we're coming out of it.
Amen. I hope so too.
Gotta pray. We gotta pray that we're coming out of it. But there's a lot of stuff going on in education. I feel like everything that we do is picked apart by some part of society. So there's a lot of things that we're facing. What in your mind is the most pressing issue that educators are facing?
I feel like the most pressing issue in education right now is unity, or maybe I should say lack of unity. Not just, I feel like there's a disunity going between students and teachers, between parents and teachers, and even between teachers and admin and teachers. We all are kind of, I feel like, fighting against each other when we're all fighting for the same thing. We should be all fighting for the same thing, and that's the students, right? Like, we should all be on the same team, but somehow in this, and maybe it's in our access to media and the way we've been voicing, and I don't know, I just feel like there's so much conflict in education when if we could just focus in and be like, we're all here for the kids. And maybe your way is not exactly like my way. And maybe your ideas are a little different than mine, but we're all here. As long as we are all here fighting for the students, then we can be stronger. Like I said, we're stronger together, right? And that includes with the admin or with the districts. And if we can all be on the team of the kids and then on the team of learning and helping them to grow and become healthy individuals, like then I feel like a lot of the extra stuff that we worry about would be less important.
You're not in it for the paycheck?
No, I'm definitely not. Most definitely not.
I couldn't agree more with you, Brooke. And I don't know why it is that we have lost focus of kids, or why we let ourselves be distracted by assessments or by attacks by parent groups or outside groups. It's really disheartening at one level, but at another level, it really does show the power. Like, we do need to focus on the kids. What is best for the kids? What is best for our students? What's best for the community that we're trying to build? Absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more. So you're a content creator on top of being a third-year teacher.
Yes.
And Josh was telling me that one of your videos got like 30 million views. And he was trying to explain it to me, and he's a good communicator. Don't get me wrong, Brooke, but he didn't quite, I don't think, explain it as well as you could. So would you just walk us through that? Like, he said there were hand actions and like clapbacks and.
Sure. So that class was my 7th grade class. They were, to this day, that was my first year teaching. They were my loudest class I've ever had. It was 25 students. I had a very small space. And so when they are all having their conversations, it is excessively loud. So I had set up my phone over next to me, and I had a call and response that I had taught them from Todrick Hall's "Do I Have Your Attention?" So it was the song has some really significant beats in it. So it was like, "Do I have your attention? Do I have your attention?" Like, he has these beats in it. So I taught them to clap on those beats. And so they're all talking loud. And for some reason, one kid is shouting, "I ate oatmeal." And I don't know, like, people picked up on that for some reason. And then I said, "7th grade, do I have your attention?" And we started clapping it out. "Do I have your attention? Do I have your attention?" And then they were all quiet, but they kind of messed up the beat, and one of the kids called it out. So we all started laughing at the end, and it was loud again. But yes, I think the reason that captured people's attention was students watching realized how loud they are in class. Like, it shocked people to realize, oh, we're that loud. Yeah, you are. And then I think people like seeing teachers love their job. I've noticed that being on social media. People love to see when teachers love their job. And that doesn't mean that we can't speak out against injustices and things that are truly upsetting and like trauma and troubling. But I do think that people also need to see us loving our job. And I think that's why that video caught off the way it did.
Brooke, I think that's why I am so drawn to you, is because you do love your job and you show it every time you post a video. We're not going to sit here behind a screen and say that everything's perfect, right? Because it's not. But it's kind of like how you viewed going into your day. I'm going to choose to love what I do, and I'm going to choose to show the world that I love it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we need more of that, don't you? Like, we need to show the world education's hard. Some days are rough, but the reward that we get from it, we can't describe.
Absolutely. And I'm still trying to feel that reward. I think as a newer teacher, it's hard to see. I remember crying so much my first year and just being like, when do I see the results? You know what I mean? Like, I'm just showing up every day, pouring my heart out. Like, when does it become worth it? And I finally do feel like I am starting to feel that in this third year, like starting to see. I do get the privilege of teaching the same kids for 3 years. I teach them in 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade. So if you like me, perfect. But if you don't, like, we're going to work through it for 3 years, me and you. But I'm getting to see them grow up. And so I'm finally really getting to see that reward side of things. And it is fulfilling.
It's huge. I have a practicum student through the local university here in Omaha. And he was curious. He said, when does teaching get to be fun? And I said, it's fun right now. And I said, but be careful. The first couple of years are really a ton of work. You have to master the curriculum. You have to master, classroom management. You try and it is a ton of work. And I think once you get past, like you said, the first couple of years and really putting in that work, then you get to see a lot of the benefits and a lot of the fun, and the kids build relationships with you, and you get to use those and leverage those and getting them to learn. Gosh, yeah, I think you nailed it. Absolutely nailed it.
Well, and Brooke, now I'm curious with Tom saying that, like, what do you think we've got a lot of listeners that are practicum students that go to Tom's class, or student teachers. Like, what do they need to know about education as they get ready to enter this world that statistically says after 5 years you're going to quit, right? Like, I mean, that's hard to say, but that's what the stats say. If you make it past 5 years, you're in it to win it. Yeah. But if you don't, you're done. And we gotta stop that trend, right?
Honestly, and I would like to see. So we have the research. That says, okay, after however many years, so many teachers quit. Where's the research that says, but the teachers who don't have this? I want to see that research. The teachers who don't have positive relationships, or the teachers who don't had an admin who mentored them, the teachers who don't have we've got to find these things for these practicum students. We've got to find this information. What is it that makes a teacher make it through the long haul? Did they sign up with the mentality that they were going to be a servant, and that's why? Did they sign up with the mentality that, like, I'm here to serve kids? Like, I don't know. I want that research. Like, maybe I'll do that research. I don't know, but I want to see that. What is it that keeps the teachers here? We need to be providing that for the students, because I know here we have like an induction program. It's more homework. It's homework for first and second year teachers. Like, we've got to set the student, I call them kids, you guys are grown-ups. But we've got to set the students up with whatever the research says is going to make them get past that 5 years, so we can have seasoned educators who, like, going back to the beginning of this podcast, still have that fervor and that passion and that love for the students. That was not advice. That's like a challenge. I guess that's not advice for the practicum kids. That's a challenge for those of us out here. Like, we've got to figure that out and stand alongside those students who are coming in and who listen, if you are out there and you're a practicum student and you're hearing the negative voices, you're still choosing right now to enter this field. grab onto, write down whatever that reason is, that you're not listening to that noise, you're not hearing those voices, and you're choosing education, you're choosing children. Write that down right now. So on the day that you forget, you go back to your journal or something like that and you say, okay, this is why I signed up for this. When you're, like me, crying in front of your second period class during your first year, like, I need to remember why I drowned out the noise, because I'm going to keep showing up for that reason.
Yeah.
I hit that 5-year mark. We got to figure that out for them.
Yeah, absolutely. There's something about, like you said, make it past 5 years, whether it's, I don't know. That's a great challenge though, for sure, Brooke.
And I like that it's put on us, right? The people that are in the job. It is up to us to help those teachers make it past that point where we're like, oh, well, if you make it here, you're going to make it or you're not. Like it's up to us to help them get there and to see that beauty in what we do.
Yeah.
Teaching's hard. We can acknowledge that and still understand it's a beautiful thing that we do.
Mm-hmm.
If you understand that it's hard, and if you understand you need blank, 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 you need classroom management, you need content knowledge, you need to understand how to lean on other people. Like, you need a lot more than what 4 years in college is going to teach you.
Absolutely. I do think connecting with, like, as a newer teacher, I had the privilege of connecting with a 20-year veteran teacher. I felt safe asking her questions. She was in a different content area than me, but she also taught junior high. So I felt like I could go to her and be like, is what I'm feeling valid right now? Or I also connected with a kindergarten teacher who was also a longtime veteran teacher. And if you can find those positive relationships, the people who are going to speak truth into your life, I think that'll help you make it in the end. Like, when you can have someone who can speak truth in love, it helps you. Like, the truth, but with love, like, not the truth, but really mean, or like, suck it up, buttercup, but sometimes that is what we need to hear.
Yeah.
So I had the privilege of having 2 strong relationships in that way. And I think that is what's helping me make it, even though it has been very, very difficult. This year has been especially oddly difficult, even though it feels like it should be better by now, right? But it's been extra difficult, even though I've been in the classroom this year. So having those relationships, I think, is really powerful.
It's huge. I remember when I started teaching my first year, and I went through a master's program, and they set me up with a wonderful, wonderful mentor. Susie Wooster was her name, and Nancy Thornblad was kind of her sidekick in the master's program that I did. But they were just magnificent mentors and supported along the way. And I think that's huge, finding those people who are maybe more experienced, shall we say, and really being able to, like, pick their brains. Brooke, this has been awesome. Your energy is just infectious. I absolutely love learning from you. At the end of every episode, we ask one final question. That in the 60s, there was a song about what the world needs now. And Josh, I think he's been feeling under the weather. There we go.
Needs now is love, sweet love. All right, I feel like you guys are looking at me long enough.
You did it.
So, Brooke, in the world of education or outside the world of education, it doesn't matter. What does the world need now?
I am someone who is driven by love. Josh and I have had these conversations before when we met in LA. Like, I think that people, if we could just see the humanity in everyone, everyone that we meet, if we could see them as human, if we could see the person on the other side of the Starbucks counter as a human being, if we could see the people on the other side of screens when we're on social media as a human, if we can see our students as humans trying to figure out their place in the world and not this oppositional group of, I have like 140 of them, like, if I can see each and every one of them as a human and love them with compassion and treat that human the way that I would like to be treated, I feel like a lot of our issues would not be as big if we could see each other and see every single individual person's value and worth. I wish for a world like that.
Brooke, I love that. We need to see value in everybody, right? No matter
Mhm.
what. If we can look at each other and say, I love you. And not love, I think sometimes love gets thrown around and we think it's some like mushy gushy thing. That's how
Right.
my daughter says it. Like, oh, you love me? If we can see love as just this human connection of I
Yes.
appreciate that you're here. I appreciate that you're doing what you're doing. We'd be such a better world with that.
Mhm.
And you know, Brooke, I love that that's what you're doing.
That's right. That's right.
Thank you guys so much for having me. This was fun.
Well, thank you, Brooke. Have a great rest of your year, and hopefully year 4 is even better.
I can't wait. I can't wait.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's our show. We're so thankful and appreciative that you took your time to listen to our guest, Brooke Rogers. Hopefully you're ready for another week of changing lives, and hopefully what the world needs now is helping you to sustain your inspiration as we journey through this school year together. If it is, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It helps us to get inspirational educator stories out.
We hope that as you head out, you remember the biggest factor that plays into student success is you, your love, your passion, your empathy, your dedication. It's exactly what the world needs now. Thank you for everything you do. Have a good one.